Black Lives Matter took the world by storm in 2020 after the death of George Floyd. Riots, looting, and chaos ran through America's streets. Violent mobs of blacks, leftists, and anarchists burned down city blocks, attacked police, and civilians who got in their way. According to data compiled by Property Claim Services and the Insurance Information Institute, the George Floyd BLM-inspired riots of 2020 caused between $1 to $2 billion in property damage. In Minneapolis alone, 1,500 locations were hit by mobs of looters and arsonists, causing millions in property damage. It was reported that at least 18 people were killed as a result of the unrest and countless others were injured. All of this ritualistic violence is congruent with the ideology of Marxism, which deems looting an acceptable practice because capital and property are said to be illegitimate and belong to the collective. Patrice Cullors, co-founder of BLM, described herself and her colleagues as trained Marxists.
I think that the criticism is helpful. I also think that it might, I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
A review of Mike Gonzalez's book on BLM noted this, quote, Garza, Cullors, and Tometi all came up through avowedly Marxist organizations, embracing a radical offshoot of black liberation that had long been rejected by the American mainstream. Indeed, Garza has publicly noted the connection between Black Lives Matter and the identically initiated Black Liberation Movement, a 1970s militant group whose armed wing committed murders and robberies in the name of its cause. Gonzalez draws particular attention to the direct connection between Garza, Cullors, and Tometi and the previous generation of radicals, most notably Angela Davis and Assata Shakur. Gonzalez explains that radicals such as Davis and Shakur saw the system itself as irretrievably flawed, influenced by the Frankfurt School scholars who sought to explain Marxism's failure to achieve its goals and reshape it for the 20th century. These radicals were steeped in the critical race theory that is only now attracting widespread attention. That repackaged Marxism eschewed the nonviolence that was even then winning the day. The Movement for Black Lives website states clearly that it aims to abolish capitalism and private property. Quote, we believe and understand that black people will never achieve liberation under the current global racialized capitalist system. They also want to abolish prisons, police, and all institutions they claim harm blacks. According to the skewed logic of these radical black Marxists, looting is a form of reparations.
If somebody decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike, because that makes sure that that person eats, that makes sure that that person has clothes, that's reparations. That is reparations. Anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance. They're going to get their money back. My people aren't getting anything.
But on Twitter, Reverend Jesse Jackson called the looting humiliating, embarrassing, and morally wrong.
Jesse Jackson has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. Jesse Jackson was not there for the creation of Black Lives Matter. Jesse Jackson can keep his opinions to himself. Do they keep us safe?
No!
Do they keep us safe?
No!
Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe!
Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe!
Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe!
We say these police!
These police!
The Movement for Black Lives website casually lays out their agenda for Black Power. Under the section Black Power Rising, it outlines a 5-year plan to achieve, quote, black governance and ultimately positioning our communities to set agendas. It is about blacks and only blacks. Quote, the Movement for Black Lives is an ecosystem of individuals and organizations creating a shared vision and policy agenda to win rights, recognition, and resources for black people. They endeavor to establish, quote, self-determined black communities where black people are in governing power in at least 5 to 10 localities over the next 5 years, outlining various political and legal strategies to achieve the political power needed to govern exclusively in the interests of black people. Splinter movements and militias have cropped up aiming for black separatism from whites, such as Black Hammer. The Colorado Sun report of the group said, quote, the Black Hammer group had $100,000 in a real estate contract for 40 acres where they planned a settlement free of cops, COVID, and white people. There were about 24 leftist revolutionaries, almost all people of color. In Denver and other U.S. cities, the group's chapters planned their signature project, Hammer City, a utopian settlement high in the Rocky Mountains free of coronavirus cops' money and white people. Together, they would renounce private property, work the land, and build power. The Black Nationalist Not Fucking Around coalition popped up in large armed marches throughout cities menacing white people.
Appearing by the hundreds at protests from Stone Mountain, Georgia to Louisville, Kentucky, demanding justice for police killings and countering what they believe is the threat of right-wing militias.
Here is their leader calling for a black ethno-state.
The NFAC stands for the Not Effing Around Coalition.
What's behind the name?
The NFAC was born out of the last 4 years under the Trump administration. The deterioration of racial relations in this country. It means that you're preparing yourselves to defend yourselves.
While the group's style echoes the Black Panther Party of the 1960s, their goals are distinct, focusing on defense with the ultimate goal of a black ethno-state.
What makes us so different is that our goal is our own government, our own country, a place where we can determine our own future.
Is violence an option to reach your goals?
The United States was built on violence being an option. Violence should be the last option.
In September 2019, black families in Georgia pooled their resources together to buy 97 acres of land with the intention of creating a, quote, city safe for black people, which would exclude whites. And that's just the start of it. As these ruinous riots unfolded, other academic Marxists stepped up to provide intellectual cover for the criminals. One example of that is transgender biological male Vicky Osterweel, who wrote the book In Defense of Looting. In an interview with NPR, Osterweel said this about looting, quote, "It does a number of important things. It gets people what they need for free immediately, which means that they're capable of living and reproducing their lives without having to rely on jobs or a wage. That's looting's most basic tactical power as a political mode of action. Importantly, I think especially when it's in the context of a black uprising like the one we're living through now, it also attacks the history of whiteness and white supremacy. The very basis of property in the U.S. is derived through whiteness and through black oppression, through the history of slavery and settler domination of the country. Looting strikes at the heart of property, of whiteness, and of the police. It gets to the root of the way those three things are interconnected, and also it provides people with an imaginative sense of freedom and pleasure and helps them imagine a world that could be. And I think that's a part of it that doesn't really get talked about, that riots and looting are experienced as sort of joyous and liberatory. This logic is customary on the radical Marxist left that stands behind BLM. Many blacks and transgenders say they don't believe in private property because they want to steal what white people have and redistribute it to themselves. The original BLM website even attacked the Western prescribed nuclear family before removing the page after criticism. That view seems to buttress the lifestyle of BLM's founder Patrisse Cullors, who is a lesbian married to another radical black activist from Canada, Janaya Khan. Khan. But what's so interesting about the anti-property and anti-capitalist sentiments of BLM leaders is that, like all champagne socialists, they don't practice what they preach. BLM raised upwards of $90 million in 2020 alone, and at least some of that money appears to have been used by Colors to purchase million-dollar properties in Los Angeles. The New York Post reported on the activists' quote, buying binge, snagging 4 high-end homes for $3.2 million in the U.S. alone. The records show Colors bought a $1.4 million home in Topanga Canyon, California, with a white population of 88% and a black population of 0.4%. She owns 2 other homes in L.A. and inquired about other expensive properties in Georgia and the Bahamas, according to the report. The lavish spending didn't end there. Colors and her BLM co-founders dipped into their donation bin to purchase a $6 million 7-bedroom mansion in Southern California. The Black Queens can be seen dining and drinking champagne in the luxury estate in a promotional video. Tax filings uncovered by the New York Post revealed that Colors paid her brother Paul $840,000 for security. She paid Damon Turner, the father of her child, $970,000 for creative services. In the 2021 fiscal year, BLM had amassed $42 million in assets. $37 million was spent on grants, real estate, and private flights. $32 million was invested in stocks. Candace Owens revealed in her newest documentary that apart from the profiteering of Colors and her close family, a bunch of money was also pumped into black transgender organizations.
So that makes Patrisse a great sister, a wonderful baby mama, and also, by the way, she's a fun mom. Because one of the events that Patrisse organized at her BLM mansion was for her young son's birthday party. Nothing says taking on police brutality quite like hosting a birthday party for your young son in a Los Angeles mansion paid for by donors to the cause. Patrisse likes parties, by the way, because she also threw a party there to celebrate the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And yeah, that's somewhat suspicious because what do Democrats have to do with Black Lives Matter? I think I'll just leave that question open-ended. Also suspicious is the fact that Black Lives Matter designated a whopping $8 million to an out-of-country grant. What? I thought this charity was about addressing police brutality in the United States. Apparently, to do that, you need to send $8 million to Toronto, Canada, to an organization named M4BJ. They purchased a $6.3 million, 10,000 square foot downtown property in Toronto. And I should also mention that M4BJ is run by Patrisse's wife, Janaya Khan, because it is. She is the co-founder, believe it or not. And here's where it gets really interesting. Janaya Khan is gender non-conforming. These terms can be quite sensitive, so let me just use photos to illustrate my point. Janaya used to look like this, and now she looks like this. Now that information would be entirely irrelevant if it wasn't for the way that Patrisse Colors saw it fit to spend the rest of Black Lives Matter's money. Ready for some BLM pride? Well, according to their IRS form, $200,000 went to the Transgender Justice Funding Project. Another $200,000 went to the Transgender United Fund. Another $200,000 went to the Transgendered Law Center. Another $200,000 went to Black Transgendered Media. Another $200,000 went to the Transgendered Variant and Intersex Justice Project. Another $200K went to the Transgendered District. By the way, if you're wondering what that is, it's purportedly going to be the all transgender district, and I guess that's really, really important for Black America advancement in society, I guess, or whatever. Another $200K went to the St. James Infirmary. That organization, by the way, is for, according to their website, it's run by sex workers and is for them. Specifically, escorts, BDSM workers, strippers, peep show workers, phone sex operators, and webcam performers. It was actually the St. James Infirmary that created the Transgendered District. So that's just an organization within another organization, which, by the way, you see a lot of when you go through these documents. So yeah, going to be apparently great big things involving sex workers in the future for Black America.
The cash doesn't seem to have reached actual black people involved in police shootings, though. Larry Elder mentioned that Michael Brown's father says he only received $500 from BLM affiliates. There was so much bad press following Patrisse Cullors around that she resigned as head of BLM in 2021. Cullors quit and said she would instead focus on selling books and a TV deal with Warner Brothers. Shortly after, a coalition of 25 BLM chapters across the U.S. sued the BLM Global Foundation for, quote, defrauding the local activist groups and mismanaging funds. The leader of the BLM Global Network Foundation, Shalomya Bowers, was sued and accused of stealing $10 million in foundation funds for personal use. The Los Angeles Times reported that, quote, Shalomya Bowers was called in the court filing a rogue administrator, a middleman turned usurper who siphoned contributions to the nonprofit activist group to use as his personal piggy bank. Bowers' actions led the foundation into investigations by the IRS and various state attorneys general, quote, blazing a path of irreparable harm to BLM in less than 18 months, the suit claims. Quote, while BLM leaders and movement workers were on the streets risking their lives, Mr. Bowers remained in his cushy offices devising a scheme of fraud and misrepresentation to break the implied in fact contract between donors and BLM. Other fraudsters came out of the woodwork to cash in on the global hustle too. Husband and wife BLM activists Clark and Monica Grant were indicted on federal fraud and conspiracy charges after allegedly using a nonprofit they founded to scam at least $185,000 from donors. Yahoo News reported, quote, allegedly used money from their nonprofit to pay for rent, shopping sprees, hotels, car rentals, auto repairs, meal deliveries, and a summer vacation trip to Maryland, the U.S. Attorney's Office said in a statement. The couple was charged in an 18-count indictment with 2 counts of wire fraud conspiracy, 1 count of conspiracy, 13 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of making false statements to a mortgage lending business. Cannon Grant was also charged with 1 count of mail fraud. There was the case of racial justice activist Shaun King, who is widely accused of scamming and fraud while riding the BLM wave. The mother of Tamir Rice accused him of raising money using her son's name without permission and that he was a, quote, white man acting black. That accusation was confirmed by King's birth certificate, which lists him as white and not black. The Daily Mail reported, quote, King has said that his father is black and his mother is white and of Irish descent, but his birth certificate lists his parents as both white. In addition, King's race is listed as white in the police report of an attack that occurred while he was in high school.
I have tremendous respect for the work that he's done. But when you're, if you hold yourself up to something that is not what you claim to be, then that's a problem if you're a leader. Now, I'm not saying that he's doing that, but that is what's in question now, and that's why this story is newsworthy. Here's what he said to me. So I asked him about it because there are all these claims about him, whether he's black, white, biracial, right, or whether was there a civil a hate crime that happened to him back in 1995. And I said to him last night, I said, what would you like to convey? And he said, number one, this attack isn't about me so much, but about derailing Black Lives Matter and the movement against police brutality. And he said, number two, the reports are all lies. I tried hard to debunk them, and others have said, that they are lies as well. And then he said, I will speak soon. And I asked him specifically, I said, are you legally black? Are you legally white? Or are you biracial? Are you black or white? He says, I am biracial. And I said, is that what it is on your birth certificate? He did not answer.
It was reported that King's Political Action Committee used donor cash to purchase a $40,000 show dog. Some customers of his Real One clothing line said it was a scam and they never received the clothes. He later tried to capitalize on coronavirus too, starting up another fundraiser. The Daily Beast reported that King's, quote, grassroots law project amassed and spent millions after George Floyd's murder, including 6-figure payouts to himself and allied consultants. Since starting his social justice crusade, King has been living the high life, moving into a, quote, luxury 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Brooklyn to the 5-bedroom, 3,000 square foot North Brunswick, New Jersey property with a lakefront backyard and gourmet kitchen, according to public records. Former members of King's disbanded Justice Together coalition harshly criticized him as a ruthless profiteer. New York Post reported, quote, following the two shootings, King launched the Justice Together coalition to help raise awareness of police brutality and support Black Lives Matter in 2015. He quickly abandoned the group, former members said in an open letter, citing King's lack of accountability. Quote, he silenced dissent without productive discussion. He removed volunteers for speaking up due to his self-proclaimed paranoia. He repeatedly failed to meet his own timelines for his participation in the work, and he failed to delegate or discuss internally anything of consequence with the organization, wrote the former members. One woman, who had donated $50 a month to another entity King founded, claims his Justice That's All group continued to charge donors monthly even after it disbanded in the summer of 2015. Quote, I just wanted to know how he was using the funds that had been auto-donated, tweeted the donor, Javachik, in 2018. When she asked King directly on Twitter, he blocked her. And then for the next month, my mentions were filled up with people calling me racist, a bitch, etc., she said. A man in Atlanta, Sir Major Page, was charged with wire fraud and money laundering after it was revealed that his Black Lives Matter charity fund was used to purchase himself a home, tailored suits, and guns. After the death of George Floyd, Page's charity took in $465,000 and spent none of it on social justice work. It was reported that, quote, the FBI said it was unable to find any expenses related to Black Lives Matter social or racial justice efforts in the $200,000 spree. What they did find was a debit card linked to the account that made purchases such as food, tailored suits, accessories, and entertainment. Authorities also found Page used his personal account to accept the transfer of funds from the group's account and used the funds to purchase a pistol and 2 rifles. Authorities said Page's biggest expense was the home in Toledo and an adjacent lot he purchased for $112,000. Authorities also obtained videos of Page bragging about purchasing new clothes, hotel rooms, and office space in Atlanta. There was a UK BLM organizer named Zara Salim who was charged with 2 counts of fraud related to fundraising. The most lucrative payout of it all was the family of George Floyd, who amassed $13.7 million in donations based on the false pretext that George was killed because he was black, when no proof has ever emerged that Derek Chauvin was racist or had animosity towards blacks. This brings us to the dollar store Al Sharpton, known as Benjamin Crump. A lawyer by trade, Crump has turned up to cash in on every single high-profile police shooting case of a black person, in some fashion representing the families of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, George Floyd, Keenan Anderson, Tyree Nichols, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Daunte Wright, and Jacob Blake. No matter the circumstances or motives involved, Crump tries to play off a racial motive every time a white person kills a black person. A Texas Tech University student, Katie Quackenbush, sued Crump for trying to racialize a shooting incident between her and a black homeless man. Her lawsuit alleged Crump's tweets about the case, quote, were racially motivated hate speech against white people and were made solely for the purpose of self-promotion and financial gain. The family of an 18-year-old black woman from Ohio who was shot and killed accused Crump of being a fraud and race hustler when he abandoned their case after learning the suspects were black and not white. Newsweek reported, quote, Nakia Crawford was shot while driving with her grandmother in Akron, Ohio, and the Crawford family said they had not solicited Crump's services in the first place and no longer wanted his involvement. Quote, he reached out to us last week, stating that we reached out to him, but we didn't reach out to him, Nakia Crawford's father, Nick, said in a press conference. Quote, ever since he found out that this killer isn't white, he's been distancing himself, he said. He's been basically after the publicity. On June 17th, Crump announced the Crawford family had retained his services. Later that day, Crump posted information about the case in which he said Nakia Crawford's grandmother had identified the shooter as a white male. In a letter addressed to U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr that Crump posted on Twitter, Crump requested that the Department of Justice launch an investigation into the shooting due to his firm's belief that Nakia Crawford was gunned down solely due to her race. During the family's press conference, Nick Crawford went on to say that Crump had, quote, bailed on them after setting up the same briefing. Ben Crump, he's a fraud, he said. We no longer need his services. The mother of Daunte Wright sued Crump over mismanaged money. A report on the matter states, quote, China Whitaker, the mother of Daunte Wright Sr.'s young son, has filed a lawsuit lawsuit against civil rights attorney Ben Crump and members of the Wright family. In the suit, Whitaker claims her son, Dante Jr., hasn't received compensation from money raised through Dante Wright Sr. Memorial Fund. Whitaker's suit, which was filed on October 3rd, alleges that out of the $1,039,000 raised through the fund, not a single penny has been turned over to plaintiff for the benefit of Dante Jr., according to Law and Crime. Crump's most prominent case was, of course, Trayvon Martin. A documentary by Joel Gilbert revealed that in that case, Crump personally orchestrated witness fraud by swapping out Martin's real girlfriend, Diamond Eugene, with a fake witness named Rachel Jantel, who was not Martin's girlfriend.
The shooting death of Trayvon Martin was ground zero for racial division in America.
In the newly released documentary, The Trayvon Hoax, filmmaker Joel Gilbert is claiming the key witness during George Zimmerman's trial is a fraud. He's saying it wasn't Rachel Jantel on the phone with Martin just before he was shot to death, but Martin's girlfriend, a woman named Diamond Eugene.
Did you sign it at the bottom?
Yes.
What name did you use?
Diamond Eugene.
The film was supposed to be shown to the media at the Coral Gables Art Cinema Thursday after a news conference on the $100 million lawsuit Zimmerman has now launched against Martin's parents, their attorney Ben Crump, and prosecutors. But the news conference and screening were canceled. We met the filmmaker and Zimmerman's attorney to talk about the cancellation and lawsuit.
I was shocked because they never said we have to approve your content. There was never editorial. I showed the movie at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. a couple months ago. No problem. They hosted me. We had a great turnout. Everyone loved the movie. So I was really upset that we got treated this way.
We didn't know that a false witness had been presented in the Zimmerman prosecution. Now, thank God he was acquitted, because if in fact that had succeeded, he would be in prison for life at this point.
Not all blacks are happy with Crump's profiteering and race hustling. Horace Cooper of Project 21 Black Leadership Network called Crump an opportunistic race profiteer who scours news reports to find examples of deadly interactions between Americans he can miscast as racist relics of a bygone era. Cooper went on to point out how Crump is profiting immensely from the cases he gets involved in. Crump got a $27 million settlement for the family of George Floyd, a $1 million settlement for the Martin family, a $1.5 million settlement for the Michael Brown family, and $12 million settlement for the Breonna Taylor family. Cooper says for the aforementioned cases, Crump could have taken in as much as $15 million. He likely takes 30 to 40% of all of these settlements he reaches for his clients. Michelle Malkin had this to say on Crump, quote, "In Crump world, anti-police ideology trumps facts. Social justice trumps actual justice, and lying about crime pays big time. Crump is going Hollywood. Next week, the Florida-based legal celebrity will debut as one of 6 featured attorneys participating in show trials on the new Fox reality series You, the Jury. Crump is also serving as host and executive producer of a 6-hour miniseries on the A&E network titled Who Killed Tupac, and Busy Benjamin is hosting Evidence of Innocence, a documentary series that will profile the unbelievable true stories of individuals who were convicted of crimes they didn't commit." Crump's business model is the same one perfected by his mentor Al Sharpton. Use racial grievance to extract as much money as possible. Others in the black community have taken notice and are pushing the limits for how much cash they can siphon from the gullible and shackled white public who fear being called racist.
Black Lives Matter! Black